some people like to be quite snobbish about theatre and what they appear in and only choosing this. I just like to embrace it all because it's your job. It's only a craft, acting. It's a skill, and a lot of it's learnt. So there's only been 2 rules really with being an actor. You turn up on time, you know your lines, and preferably you're sober. So that's about the only rules, because the whole business is created really on how you look. It's what's in your head and projected through your eyes. So you can't act it, you just have to be it, which is the big lesson, I think, about this work. I was the lead. I was Redcap in Fairyland, and I think I sort of pranced around the stage as I suggested, singing obliviously off key, but very loudly. And yeah, I thought it was tremendous. Loved the clapping. So there you go, that's your start in life. There were a lot of game shows, quiz shows, appearances, children's programs. It was a very active time. Television was going to set up a drama department. And what they did, all the actors were allowed to go to this I suppose, sessions where we were taught what was a close-up, what was a long shot, and so on, and also to cut back on our very theatrical acting skills. Of course, the big cameras slid on these huge skirts around the studio, and we had to find our mark, very specific marks for the camera. So it was really good discipline. You do get more of a steam up, you get a very strong feeling of concentration that once you've rehearsed it, and rehearsed it with cameras, you've got one shot, and that's it. There's no going back. In fact, a lot of our television was broadcast live. In those days, I remember Music Hall, which, when you consider there was a 10-piece orchestra, an hour-long show, 10 dancers, and an audience. I had 3 children, so there was obviously a lot less for me. That occupied me quite a bit. Then went to Australia, did some stuff, came back here, decided not to be an actor, and yeah, then when my children were grown up, I thought, well, here we go again. They were casting for Shortland Street, so a couple of years' work was landed on my plate. What a great experience to update my skills, get back in. Liz McRae, who was very popular, decided to leave the show. They searched around for a replacement for Liz, and we're nothing alike. So for the first, oh dear, for the first 6 weeks, while they sort of tested me out to find if I was any good, I wore Liz's clothes even, and Liz is about a 16 and I'm a 10. So I always felt I was getting into a role that they didn't know what to do with me. Her name was Liz Stokes. But fast turnaround television was really good for me at that stage. And I learned a lot from some wonderful people. Ross Bevan wrote the script. He just was a guy who decided to make a movie and was determined to make a movie. And he was an ex-bikie, so with gang affiliations. So it was a very nice protective space to be in because we were a gang again. Do you know what I mean? All of us on the same side. I played Brian Sargent's mother, and it's always a treat to work with Brian. It was a good script about what a mother does with her hopeless drug addict son. When do you really get an opportunity to make such a fool of yourself? You know, it's an extreme drinker, an extreme smoker, And she just really took things to the limit that the young people who watched the show really loved, and that doesn't happen very often. I was quite highly indignant when Gail said, well, you're sort of on hold for Nan McMahon, and I was quite upset because that was the oldest person on the show, and vanity really does keep you fooled that maybe, you know, the cameras will be a little kinder to you. But in these days of high digital television, it's cruel. Anybody over 30 hardly survives these days. And bring back the Vaseline lens, I think, would be a good idea. And so she said, well, think about it, as a good agent does. And so I went to Auckland, did the show, met Annie Whittle, who was my daughter, who's incidentally only about 3 years younger than me. There was me, Nan McMahon, Annie Whittle playing Jan McMahon, the gorgeous Ingrid Park playing Fran McMahon, and Alex Bushnell playing Britta. 4 women, all very strong, who are all solo mothers, 4 generations of solo mothers, all living in the same house. So the dynamics are wonderful and strong. But although we tear at each other, there's a strong ethic of love and support there always that shines through. And then we're also, Annie and I playing mother and daughter, we were so dying for Britta to have a baby and become a solo mother and be able to go on the family benefit. And so that we can all stay together and bring up the next generation. Ingrid Park played an absolutely focused real estate agent. And the amazing thing was that we picked on her all the time, but it was her money that kept us all in our lifestyle of unemployment. So I loved that family and felt very privileged to be part of it. Here I had a wonderful female foil, Ilona Rogers. We landed together as best friends in, what do they call them, pensioners' home. And we're quite sex obsessed. We want to catch every old guy that comes through the door and give him a jolly good rogering, because that's what we're into. And I believe this is quite true in old people's homes. It's quite competitive. And let's face it, they're not going to get pregnant or anything, so there's no problems about that. And everybody's got to die soon, so you might as well get on and encourage one of the primal instincts of being alive. So I had a good time, yeah. An old cop ends up in the same place as his arch enemy, who's a villain. And it's how they have changed in life, and the fusion between reality, what is reality, and illusion when you get older, and what is real. So it's got a nice little ironic twists there, touching on dementia, which frightens us all, of course. So it's a very serious side, but they're still getting on with life in their own way. There's less. Unlike the English, who treasure their olds, we are, by nature, this is a country that was raised really on the backs of young people. It was about having children, being strong enough to work the land, being energetic enough to make a go of it. So we haven't got around to writing that many parts for older people. So the great American writers you always see, there are, but we don't. And somebody will at some stage, because matriarchs and matrons are terribly important. But I think it's better to be over 50 than it is to be 40 somehow, unless you're Robin Malcolm. Simply because that age group is not really written for. And what you have to be really careful about is that to be true to the people of the older generation is that you can't just make them a joke. They're not just silly people who sit around with their teeth out and all. They're terribly active, and so there's a bit of a responsibility there. So I've been very lucky, but I've been a bit overexposed, so I'm hoping that there'll be some totally different part that will come for me in the future.
See?
So maybe it's time to get writing for ourselves.